second object of our love must be our neighbor. A neighbor is anyone that you come in contact with on a regular basis. Do not limit the meaning of this, because when Jesus spoke of a neighbor, that's what he's talking about. People that you regularly come in contact with. People that you have an opportunity to love. That's what he's talking about. Don't limit the definition of neighbor to simply the person living next door to you. Your neighbor is your coworker. Your neighbor is, of course, your spouse, your child, your fellow church member. Your neighbor is whoever you're coming in contact with on a regular, routine basis. People that you have been given an opportunity from God to love. That's your neighbor. Do you love your neighbor as yourself? Paul takes it a step further when he writes that we are to esteem others better than ourselves. To esteem means to value. So he puts a twist on what Jesus says and says, if you really want to love others better as you love yourself, then make sure that you value and esteem others better than yourself. I told on myself last night, because I failed to do this with my wife the other day. Sherry Cratcher and the Cratchers had a death in the family, so they're out of town this weekend, so we haven't heard from them. But Sherry brought peanut butter pie over to our house. And she's one of my favorite people now. As is Lillian Blue, who also brought peanut butter pie last night. So I so much appreciate these wonderful ladies in the Lord here. But Sherry brought this piece of pie over the other night, and it was just one piece. There's 4 people in our house. One piece of pie. This creates a problem. Now, of course, the kids don't count, so we didn't even regard that. So it left me and Jane. Well, I figured that since Jane knew about the piece of pie, I couldn't hide it from her. So, as I was going to help myself to it, I thought, I guess I need to ask if she's already had a piece. So I asked. She hadn't. I was like, she hasn't had a piece. So, I have to then cut the piece of pie and split it with her. Now, if I were a good pastor and a good Christian, I would have let her cut it, or I would have cut it and given her the bigger piece. But I'm not a good Christian and a good pastor when it comes to peanut butter pie. And so I gave myself the bigger piece. But anyway, and I have to confess that now, but to her. But the thing is, when in reality, that's a small example, but a bigger point. In reality, in our day-to-day lives, we need to value and esteem others better than ourselves. When your coworker gets a promotion that you really wanted, you need to value and esteem that person better than yourself. When someone else gets the credit for something and you don't get any credit, you feel like you should have gotten credit, do you esteem and value them better than yourself? Jesus washed the disciples' feet. Jesus laid his life down for us. Jesus is God. And God serves us and loves us. And yet, sometimes, we argue amongst ourselves based on who can get, the best of life. And we fight and we compete with one another to try to get the best out of life. When in fact, we're called to love one another, to serve one another, to yield and defer to one another. That's what Jesus asks of us. Do you do that? Galatians 6 verse 10 says, as we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith. So we are to do good. Indeed, we are to look for opportunities to do good to everyone, with particular attention to those who are our brothers and sisters in Christ. This forces us to not be self-centered, and it forces us to not look at our relationships based on what we can get out of them. We should look at our relationships based on what we can give to them. Are Are you asking God for opportunities each and every day based on what you can do to be a blessing to other people?